Welcome to the Rosbergs, your marriage coaches. Join Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg, America's family coaches, who bring 4 decades of empowering marriages across the U.S. and internationally for this podcast to equip you and your partner with encouragement and tools for a great marriage. Here now are your hosts, Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg.
We're Dr. Gary and Barb Rosberg, your marriage coaches. And Barbie, we're back.
We are back. And today, boy, it's going to be a great day. We're talking about the 5 stages of marriage. We're going to dive into some really new things that you'll be interested in. We'll be going from the butterflies of infatuation through the challenges of the early years when there's a lot more conflict and push and pull and struggling, power plays. The beauty of when you land with interdependence. And this is where we really heal Team We and celebrate the legacy stage. That's where we're at right now. We want to walk you through truly God's design for a lasting love in your marriage.
And if you're listening today, as you are listening today, otherwise you wouldn't know that I'm saying this, but you're probably saying, well, what stage are we at? And are these really linear? Do we go in and out of some of them? And probably all those things are true. But Barbie, this is fascinating to me. I've just been doing research on, what is it about different stages of marriage that kind of manifest themselves in different characteristics and attributes. And we're going to give you insight today, friends, on the stage that most people get stuck. And when they get stuck in this stage, they buy a lie from Satan that something's wrong with their mate or something's wrong with their marriage. And they think, I got to change spouses. I got to change partners. I got to change and go find somebody else to fill my needs. And that's the biggest mistake. Because when we get stuck in that stage, then you know what? We bring ourselves into those other relationships and it can get really, really hard. We're also going to remind you that there's hope in every single one of these stages. And here's what we know. Most couples, Barbie, crash in stage 2. Mm-hmm. Not stage 1, not 3, 4, and 5. It's stage 2. And that's when you are having what we're coining today power struggles. It's when there are dust-ups. It's when there's conflicts. And so what a lot of people do, honey, is they never get to the other side of that stuff, or they keep having them. And for some of you, you're going to say, Gary and Barbie, we are out of stage 1. We're not into stage 3. We've been doing stage 2 for years and years and years. That's not uncommon. And we're going to unpack why that's true. Because if you can get through 2, which is power struggles, into the healing stage, stage 3, into Team We, stage 4, and ultimately into interdependence, you know what? Then you've got a marriage that will go the distance and will bring glory and honor to Christ and to the legacy that you leave behind.
So let's unpack the first stage.
Yeah,
it's infatuation. And, it's when we fall in love. What do you remember about our first days of meeting each other? And
we were talking about the other day. I pulled up to your sorority house. It was 1972 or 3. And she was getting out of her little yellow Carmen Ghia car. And you're going into a sorority meeting. And I was coming over to speak at that sorority meeting to recruit volunteers for a juvenile delinquency program that I gave leadership to. Had a lady with me named Donna DeMoya. I don't know if you remember Donna. Never saw her again. But I saw you in the driveway and I asked you, what time's the meeting start? And I'd never seen you before. And I was smitten. And this is 50 some years ago. I was smitten the first time I saw you.
It's because I was the only girl on the campus he had not met and not dated.
No,
so, but
yeah. But I saw you and I was a goner.
Yeah.
So the butterflies started right out of the gate.
Well, I remember looking at you thinking, I was really new to my house, and I thought, these girls really date cool guys. Gary, your hair was down to your shoulder, and you had a mustache, and you had big bushy eyebrows. You still do. Yeah. Anyway, you know what? It's the infatuation. It's when we flirt, when we've got long hours of phone calls and stories, and it's the honeymoon stage of a relationship. And I want to tell you something. I still have the infatuation part of our marriage with you. Now look at me. I mean it.
Yeah.
You look me in the eye because it's eye contact. They say that when you're
checking you out on the screen there.
Oh,
Barbie.
well, I'll take that too. But reality is, do you know that when you connect to one another and you look at one another in the eyes, usually couples do this early in marriage. But if you do it throughout these stages that we're going to be talking about, it keeps you connected. Gary Rosberg, I am so connected to you. And I still am infatuated with Gary and by Gary. And we're going to give you some elements today, how to keep it going, folks, because it's worth it. Life is short, and don't miss an ounce of it because it really goes too fast.
You know, that infatuation, I mean, the chemistry of it, the raising of the anticipation, the hormones, the butterflies, all that stuff, they're different in later stages of a relationship. They're still exciting and thrilling.
Oh, I think you still extract parts of it. I really do.
Extract parts of it. But often, if we think that that's all there is, it begins to wane. If we think that we have to base a relationship on that, and we don't take our independence, which is what we're talking about, and go from independence into interdependence, and we talked about that some in our last podcast as well, then the relationship sometimes begins to wane and begins to break up. And so we got to talk about how to do that.
Oh, we will. But if you keep elements of laughter and joy, we're going to share with you some things today. You can revive those early years of infatuation. Yeah. So, Gary, let's talk about the next stage.
Well, so what happens is if we are going through that dream stage and that infatuation stage, and it begins to drop off, then we begin to have the conflict, and the conflict begins to rear up its head. And most people don't expect the conflict. So they're clicking along and they're, weeks or months into this relationship. And all of a sudden there's some disappointment. There's some discouragement. There are issues that they have differences in. And those things begin to surface. And that's when things begin to get a little bit wonky if you don't know how to manage those conflicts.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we're prepared for them. I mean, you start living together and all you've got is the roadmap of what your parents had or what you had in your first family system. And so then you find out you've kind of married your spouse and you've married his family and you've married their roadmap. And maybe one of you's really organized and the other one's not. It's those early days of finding out who you really married and who you really are. Mm-hmm. And like you said, working through the conflict. I wrote in my notes here that unresolved conflict is the quicksand of erosion during this stage of marriage. You want to gain from it and use it as a tool to bridge to get through it and learn how to get through it quickly. But if you get stuck there, you could really dissolve a lot of your intimacy and connection skills within marriage.
It's interesting. Dr. John Gottman says when they have analyzed the nature of problems, issues that rise up and that lead to conflict in couples, that 31% of those problems are solvable. So there are issues that you can get through to the other side and you can come to a resolution and you can change something. But the other percentage, which is 69% or whatever, is not solvable. You need to manage those conflicts. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you don't resolve them, you don't change them because those are personality differences, temperaments, just issues that aren't going to change, the presence of stepkids or kids or in-laws. I mean, there are things that you can't change, you can't fix, but you can manage.
It came with a man or it came with a woman?
Came with a man, came with a woman, they stay. And what we got to do is figure out how do you integrate that. And, when you think about it, Barbie, we were talking to a single who's dear to us. And that single adult is falling in love. And they said, one of the things that I'm concerned about is my boyfriend, my girlfriend is just really independent. And we said, well, they're supposed to be independent. Well, what do you mean? They're supposed to be independent because they're not coupled with you. That's when the interdependence happens. But you don't go from just independent to interdependent. It's got to go through the battles and the difficulties of differences and really being willing to compromise and negotiate out changes and lean into the Lord and lean into one another to get to the other side.
I know before we leave this top place of struggling and conflict resolution, I think often a person may come into the marriage and think, I've got to win this battle. I've got to win this conflict. And I pray that life gives you enough humbling that you realize it's never about winning. It's about godliness. And may every failure, every conflict you're going through press you into the arms of Christ, where we find brokenness and where we're on our knees and we learn to resolve things more quickly, because it is not about winning. It's about godliness and being a godly couple in our marriage. That's the bridge. And that's the unity and the communion, Gary, that we have in a faith-based, a Jesus Christ-based marriage.
Well, and you know what, honey, one of the things that I think is really important for people to understand is that the conflict is inevitable. We're different. We have all these different patterns. Our parents did it differently. Our in-laws did it differently. Our siblings do it differently. The culture does it differently. And so when we're trying to figure out how do we do it, we got to recognize that we're different. It's okay to be different. We need the differences.
But there's similarities too.
But there are similarities
a lot
as well.
of them.
And so when you think that something's wrong with your spouse and you're having this conflict and you're no longer in that infatuation and you're clashing about things, the answer isn't, well, then walk away from it. The answer is to push through those things and to allow those things to be released, to surrender to some of those differences so that you complement one another. You don't compete with one another. So that you bring your strengths and weaknesses in with the other person so that you mutually love one another and serve one another, encourage one another through humility and through obedience and through courage.
And through love.
And you cover each other. Mm-hmm. And sin covers, or love covers a multitude of sins. And you really become one. And that's in that power struggle that, it's like a gut ache after, too much pizza. I mean, you're churning, but you know what? You begin to settle in and you get to the other side of it. And Barbie, a lot of couples get stuck.
They do get stuck. And I want to give you some scripture. And that is this. James 1:19 says this. It's a roadmap for us. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And some of those early conflicts that we all have during those early years are sweet if you get to the other side of it and you make up. I mean, your makeup fights, making up. That's good stuff. Guys, it is good stuff. That's right.
Make up, kiss and make up and kiss again.
So, and bring the love into it and bring the infatuation into it. And always remind your spouse, speak well to them. Remind them right in the middle of it. You know why I married you? I loved this about you. Talk about setting them back and wanting to quit talking and quit having a conflict, but choose you and choose we over the conflict.
Barbie, there's so much wrestling for positioning in marriage. A guy thinks, well, if I say yes too often to things, if I put aside my desires or my needs to meet her needs, then she's going to take advantage of it. A lot of men say, well, you know what, if I step up as a servant leader, as Paul describes in Ephesians, if I love my wife as Christ loves the church and I step into that leadership role, she's going to wrestle me for the leadership. And sometimes, Barb, that happens because women grow up either with an overpowering dad and they go, I'm never going to be overpowered and have that authoritarian role in my life, or a dad that was absent or passive. And they think, well, then I need to step up in order to assert the leadership. And this gets wonky for couples. I mean, Barb and I believe that God designed man and woman and that we're unique in each other. We are co-equal. We have co-value. So it's not a question of value or are we validated, but we're validated also in the role that God prescribed. And God designed a man and he designed a woman, and it takes two in order to have a marriage and to have a family.
Takes two to make three.
It takes two to make three. And we made two. Well, we made 2 3 times. We lost one, right?
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
so
Jonathan.
Shall we get into our next stage?
Yeah. So let's talk about what happens when you break through and get to the other side.
Okay. So if you as a couple, you're persevering. I mean, there are couples, I look back in our marriage and gosh, it went fast. I think this conflict oriented or the struggle stage, if you stay there too long, it can do a lot of damage in a marriage. And my prayer for you today is that you will choose to persevere and bridge it and get to the other side as quickly as possible. It doesn't matter how many conflicts you have. It really matters about how quickly you timely resolve them and you make peace with one another. You know, you can have the struggles. We want you to persevere because once you get from the struggling and conflict side, you get to the healing of interdependence. You know what you do? You put your swords down. If you live by the sword, you'll die by the sword. You choose to agree with one another. Peace is the greatest gift we can give to one another in marriage. Devotion, our humility, our longing to make things right. This is a very healing stage in marriage. And 3 things happen in this stage. First of all, you listen. You want to understand your spouse. That's number 2. Number 3 is we're quicker to forgive because you might have young kids. You've got a lot going on. You've got trials. You may not have enough money. But you've got to move together in togetherness, in oneness. Otherwise, you won't make it through. And it's better to be one, 2 people becoming one and pushing through and learning that interdependence. Because when you get to the other side, I'm telling you, the mountains will move quite a lot faster. So life is short, folks, and we want to see you power through.
Yeah, and when you power through and push through, we want you to push through in unity. That means gentle ramp-ups to the conflict. It means that you don't strike with a high feverish pitch emotion that overwhelms the other person. Now, we've all done it. I've done it. And we do it out of fear. We do it out of insecurity. We do it out of the desire to be heard. We do it out of the desire of feeling misunderstood.
Any number of emotions.
So we raise the pitch. But raising that pitch is what puts the other person off. And it leaves them stuck in that power struggle. So when you're pushing through, like Barbie's coaching us today, and get to that healing stage, that's where you realize that forgiveness is there. And forgiveness is not a feeling. Forgiveness is a choice. When you choose to forgive, it doesn't mean that what happened didn't happen. But what it means is you let go of holding it over the other person's head with retribution or reminders or certainly condemnation or shame. You know, honey, when we have had conflicts, especially in the nighttime, and we go to bed and it's not completely resolved, but we work hard to getting it resolved because we want to follow Paul's admonition to not let the sun go down on your anger. Don't give the devil a foothold is what Scripture tells us.
And we've agreed that God's given us a timetable. If one of you is more of a quick processor and the other one is a slow processor, the slow processor literally needs a good night's sleep or 24 hours to figure out what they're thinking and what they're feeling before they can verbalize it. A quick processor might want to it's an urgency and you want to, your amygdala in your brain, it's like, quick, let's get this fixed. But is it wisdom? It may not be wisdom. So agree on a time to come back together for the greatest of all, which is wisdom, so that you talk about it. Tell each other what time you'll come back together to.
And God's mercies are new and fresh every morning. So when we wake up the next day and the sun comes back up and it's glistening or it's a foggy day, but the sun comes up. And you know what, Barbie? I mean, over and over again in our 50 years of marriage, I have found that there are times I just take a deep breath and I go, okay, that was a high-pitched discussion. I mean, that was an emotional discussion. But we're on the other side of it. And then we re-nurture one another. That healing is full of nurturance.
It is.
It's full of soft tones. It talks about non-physical touch as well as sexual touch. I mean, it's where you come back together
Both of
in that
those are
sense
very
of unity.
healing. Yeah.
They're very healing. And our love deepens because we forge together and we reject the notion that the enemy is going to win in this battle. You know what, you guys, if you are a Christian, if you follow Christ, then we need to be real straight with you. You're going to be not living on a romantic balcony all the time. You're going to be living in a battlefield because the enemy wants to destroy you. He wants to distort issues. He wants to make issues bigger in your head. He wants you to change the narrative so that it becomes, explosive, rather than toning it down and bringing it down into a sense of connection where there's safety and trust. And that's why those slow ramp ups are so important. A harsh ramp up many times keeps the conflict going. In healing, a slow ramp up allows the other person to feel safe. Now catch this. It builds the wall up around us, but it allows us to put the wall between us down. And when the wall around us goes up, we feel safe. It's like drawing at a castle, the drawbridge up, and the alligators are in the moat, and with the king and queen and all the kids are safe in the castle. Why? Because it's protected. But you then put down the wall between you so you can connect. You make choices during that healing stage. One of the choices is to not let the emotions reign, but learn and practice empathy. It's where you zero in on what is it that you're experiencing. And even if you differ with it, it's fine. Take some time, though, and seek to understand. Barbie, I remember my dad. He said, Gary, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you'd listen twice as much as you talk. And that was pretty wise, from my Swedish father. But what he didn't tell me is that in that healing, you really then begin to develop a sense of interdependence. Now, we grew up with parents that were interdependent upon one another.
They both were.
But they didn't leap into interdependence. They started independent. I mean, her mom grew up in Norway, came over on the boat with several siblings. One of them died on the boat from Norway, from Oslo. My dad's family came from Sweden. They were only children. And if you know anything about Scandinavia, you know that Norwegians and Swedes have been at battle at different stages for centuries. And you have only children growing up in Chicago of Norwegian and Swedish descent. They knew how to have conflict. And yet I saw them break through that. And they didn't break through it with the butterflies and, the dances and all the fun times. They broke through it through pain and suffering. And if you are having pain and suffering, we want to assure you, you can get to the other side. That God uses the pain and suffering in order to peel away stuff from you and from your spouse and from your marriage to help you to lean into surrender rather than what Barbie talked about earlier, and that is winning. So interdependent doesn't mean codependent. It doesn't mean dependent. What it means is that you have a husband and a wife, and they are mutually completing one another. You have a husband submitting to Christ and a wife's willingness, and this is a tough one for some people, but a willingness to submit to her husband because she sees her husband submitting to Jesus, and it makes her submission to her husband reasonable.
I think too, Gary, that as a woman is also submitting to Christ, but as your husband loves the Lord and shows he loves the Lord, then it's easier to trust him during those times of conflict.
It is.
And, a moment ago, you mentioned the word forgiveness. I think we need to forgive everybody, absolutely everybody. Here's the deal. Forgiveness is probably the most selfish, wonderful thing we've ever been gifted with because we aren't designed to carry the heavy weight of unforgiveness.
That's really good, Barbie.
Forgive everyone. But at the end of your list of who you forgive, ask yourself, who do I need to apologize to? Because it could be that you've lied to yourself and created a narrative that isn't true. So, go to the people you need to apologize to. But you be free because forgiveness is amazing. And you can have the joy that you were designed to have in relationship with God, but in community with the Lord and your husband and your wife at the same time. It's a relationship of three. And when we use it the right way, we are open to being tenderhearted And there are times that there will be things outside of your marriage that you might have to forgive someone, but you've got to keep a real firm spine. That's boundaries. But always seek to be tender in your marriage and seek to be clear that you're honoring God and talk things through.
Well, forgiveness restores the joy to us.
It does.
It restores the joy. So you have the infatuation, then you have the clash of the power struggle, then you have the healing that comes out of that as you both surrender. And then, Barbie, you get to stage 4, which is team we.
Team we.
And we love teaching our coaching couples and at conferences and in podcasts and training other marriage coaches. We talk about team we all the time. Team we means that we are better together than we are apart. Team we means that a husband and a wife are forging through the issues of their life, they're healing, and they're fighting for each other. They're not fighting against each other.
And there's loyalty. I mean, you've heard of when we're tied together. Well, there is loyalty, and we are agreeably walking in oneness and godliness and confessed and seeking wisdom on all fronts. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, we make decisions as a unit. The foundation of it is respect, that mutuality. We purpose to protect the peace. And you know what, Barb, the research supports it. And because studies show that couples who stay together for decades aren't the ones who avoid conflict. They're the ones that keep choosing
one another. Absolutely.
And growing through it and aligning their lives around a relationship with Christ and shared purpose.
And it's the way that you get there is through really pondering, what's going on and having that self-examination of pausing and praying and then talking it through and then pivoting away. Allow these times, these differences to change you and make you more kingdom-minded and more kingdom-minded in your marriage.
And then when we push through team we, and team we is awesome. The healing before it is awesome. But when we push through team we get to the 5th stage, which is absolutely fascinating because that's where we're living. And it's called the legacy stage.
Yeah.
It's where you are really focused and intentional about the legacy that you're leaving behind. It's where you look at all that's been built. And I don't mean houses and, 401ks and all these things outside of a lot of our control. I mean the spiritual foundation, the relational wellness, the connectivity in multi-generations, the belief that the name that God has entrusted you with, which is called Christ follower, is paramount. It's not distinguished by, different political denominations or parts of the country that you live in or what political or what religious denomination you are. It transcends all of that. It's when a husband and a wife have experienced such oneness and that team we has led them to a sense of destiny, a sense of speaking into and believing and taking time in order to invest in the next generation. Honey, we just got done celebrating our 50th anniversary. We've talked a little bit about that on podcasts. But we had a videographer, and I was rewatching the video. I've watched it a couple times today, these 5-6 minute clips. And what it shows us is that there in front of the 15 members of our family, so 9 of our grandkids were there and our daughters and their husbands. And we spoke into them, and we not only spoke about our marriage, we spoke about their future marriages for the 9 grandkids, because none of them are married. And they range in age from 7 up to almost 24. And as we looked into them, we said, you know what? Our commitment to the institution of marriage is modeling for you that marriage can last and go the distance and not just grunt your way through it, just get to the other side, just survive it, but thrive in it. And that it makes a difference, and that our marriages are difference makers. It's interesting. One of our kids put some social media up with that, one of those clips, those video clips. And one of their friends said, this is a fascinating comment. They said, you know what, to our daughter, they said, your mom and dad are our goal. And when I read that, I thought, what an interesting way to say it. Now, they're not talking about our 50-year marriage. They've been married 20-some years. But what they were saying is that's our goal. We want to be, not necessarily like Gary and Barb, but we want to be at the 50-year mark, still bringing glory and honor to Jesus Christ and believing in the next generation and having hope that our marriages and our families and our legacies make a difference. We want to leave a legacy of destiny that will impact others, that has weathered the storm.
Weathered the storm. And everybody's got storms. And if you're not coming out of one, you will enter another one probably within 6 months. So it's life. But as we never, ever weather them alone. That's when we align, we have oneness, we have agreement, we take the time to sit down and discuss the issues that we're dealing with, to pray together, and then we agree that there is a holy fire, a boundary around our marriage. And we have this wonderful saying that we've written about in one of our books, but we will let no man, no woman, and no child divide us. Yeah. And it's interesting, at different times of your life, it might be one of your kids that are going through something. And they could divide you. Or it could be someone outside of your marriage that is trying to divide you. I love the scripture that says, bad company really corrupts good morals. Think about the values you have in your marriage: loyalty, peace, oneness, unity, dancing in the hallway, dancing before we come on and do this.
We were doing that, sir?
We were. And nobody's going to take that away, because we have to fight for the very thing that is the most important thing to us, and that's our marriage. So others will come and go, but for your marriage, it's really a holy covenant. And that's where we want to lead couples to today.
Yeah, the legacy. And so if you're in that early stage of infatuation and you're still taking characteristics of that throughout your marriage, awesome. If you're in that power struggle, don't give up. Don't give up. That doesn't mean something's wrong with your marriage or something.
Or your spouse. Not at all.
No. And again, remember, 31% of those problems are solvable, but the other 60-some% are not solvable. They need to be managed, not fixed, managed. So don't look at your spouse as a home
improvement.
Improvement
that's so dishonoring.
Yeah, and that dishonors them. But realize that you need to manage it together as you push through those power struggles. Lean into the healing and the restorative nature that Jesus Christ has in your marriage relationship.
And interdependence.
And that interdependence. And as you push through that, experience the team way.
And the joy. It's joy. And don't waste a minute. These years go so fast. And it seems like, I hate to say it, but it gets faster and faster at the very end. And you don't want one moment to be wasted on struggles, on conflict. I mean, prune out anything in your life that is taking away your joy, so that you can experience the more in your marriage.
That's what God's designed your marriage for, the more. And you know what? As a Christian, when you are surrendered to Christ, you've got the power of the Holy Spirit. Go for it. You don't do it on your own power. You do it on the power of the Holy Spirit. And your spouse may not be teachable during different phases. Well, then you be teachable and hang on. Because the couples that get to the other side, you guys, and they experience team we and the legacy, they didn't always agree. It wasn't always smooth. They weren't always working in complete unison. One of them may have been, harnessing more during different stages. That's okay, because it's going to be the other person's turn later on. The couples that get to the other side, both are committed to the covenant of their marriage, even when it's not making sense sometimes. And so hang on. Now, we've got, as we often do, we put together an assessment. This one's called the 5 Stages of Marriage Assessment. If you email Sarah, and that's with an H, so SARAH at afcoaches.com.
There you go.
And ask for the 5 stages of marriage. You'll get this 25-question assessment. You have a Likert scale from 1 to 5. It'll give you a bead on where are we. Are we in that infatuation, the power struggle, the
healing and forgiveness?
Yep. The team
we.
The legacy stage.
Yeah, it's so good. Well, what I wanted to encourage you with is get a copy for yourself and your spouse. Then make copies and invite couples into your home. Maybe you've got a life group and have them walk through it too. Now, remember, always bring out the best in one another. If you've got a complainer or someone that tends to be really critical, help them pivot, maybe make ground rules ahead of time, that the only thing we say about our spouses is to be encouraging and to build one another up, because that's what marriage is all about. We fuel the good in one another. We remind one another of what we're doing well. We speak blessings over one another. Words are very powerful. So we pray that you've enjoyed today's program. And yes, we do. And so we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yep. So guard your hearts. Yep. We're the Rosbergs, your marriage coaches. We'll see you next time.
Hey listeners, make sure to stay up to date with the Rosbergs by subscribing to their show, Your Marriage Coaches, on any major podcast platform such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you will get an alert each time a new episode is released. Whatever platform you're listening on, please rate the podcast and leave us a review.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Rosbergs, Your Marriage Coaches, with Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg. To find out more, go to americasfamilycoaches.com. Once you're there, you can check out the many resources that they have available. From their many books to their informative video series, 6 Secrets to a Lasting Love, they've got all the tools you need to help you grow deeper in your relationship with your spouse and with God. Go to americasfamilycoaches.com and click on the Resources tab. Also, if you have a marriage question, you can call 855-ROSBERG and leave a message with your question. We may use your question on a future episode. We appreciate your prayers and support for this ministry. Find out how you can come alongside us when you go to americasfamilycoaches.com. Just search the top of the index for the Donate tab. Thank you for listening in today. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of The Rosbergs, Your Marriage Coaches, with Gary and Barbie Rosberg.
How's your marriage really doing? Not just on the surface, but at its core. Whether you've been married for 2 years or 20, every couple needs a moment to pause, reflect, and grow. That's why Dr. Gary and Barbie Rosberg created the brand new Rosberg Marriage Wellness Checkup, a powerful tool built on decades of coaching, research, and their Gold Medallion Award marriage book, The 6 Secrets to a Lasting Love. With this assessment, you and your spouse, or even your small group, can discover where your marriage is thriving and where it needs a little extra care. You'll explore 14 essential areas, from trust and vulnerability to romance, boundaries, faith, and even how you divide responsibilities at home. Think of it as a map for your marriage, showing where you are and where to build. Because rediscovering the love of your life starts with knowing how you're really doing together. Go to rosberggroup.com/marriage-wellness and start your journey to a stronger, more connected marriage today.